again. Hey, everybody, this is Carol. Thanks for joining me. For those who haven't met me, I have been working, to help people develop personally and professionally for about the last 20 years now. I've taught career and professional development classes, along with communication and business classes, again, for about 20 years, and also worked as a consultant for many years. And my goal, as I said, is to help people develop the skills that they need to get where it is they want to go, and hopefully without paying a lot of money to other consultants who would charge them, to get to their next step. So whether you are a college student, a college graduate, or re-careering, this information is for you. I'll be promoting more videos, hopefully soon, and I'm open to sharing whatever content you think that you guys can benefit from. Today, what I want to start by talking about is 3 things that you should be doing before the interview so that on the day of the interview, you feel really good about it. Those particular 3 things are going to be 1, great research, 2, prepare your content, and I'll talk a little more about that. 3 would be prepare yourself. And there's a lot that could be said, and I have a lot of other videos that I've done in different environments, and they were much longer. And the feedback that I got was, yeah, this is all great, but I need it shorter. Can you make it shorter? So what I'm going to try to do today is keep it very brief, and then soon upload more videos that hopefully expand on each of the things that you guys want to see or hear more about. So that being said, let's get right into it. Again, the very first thing is to do research. And it probably makes really good sense. Most of you watching, maybe you think, well, duh, of course I'm going to do research on the company. But what I've found in working with hundreds of HR managers, just bosses or employers, or folks in human resources, and then I've also done a lot of hiring myself, what I find is a lot of times people send in resumes or apply for jobs without doing research. So if you're watching and you are somebody who does research, awesome. Go ahead and fast forward another about 2 minutes, maybe 3, and you won't need to hear this part. But if you haven't been doing the research, maybe this is something to start thinking about. When I say research, what I mean is, what type of company have you applied to? Is it a large or a small company? Is it a more of a casual, fun environment, or is it more formal? Meaning more, the examples that I usually give would be like an eBay versus, or a Google, is probably a little more vivid in my mind, because I don't know that much about eBay. But let's say there's a Google, or there's a Boeing, right? From what I understand of both of those organizations, the Google environment is more like what I would envision would be the pods that you can nap in, maybe a great cereal bar, a strong emphasis on creativity and ingenuity, maybe free thinking, and if I understand correctly, maybe a little more flexibility in terms of the hours of operation or when people are expected to come in or how late they're expected to stay, versus like a Boeing or someplace like that. They are probably more of set hours, more suit and tie, or maybe not the jacket, but certainly slacks and a tie. And of course, there are different areas in each company. But what I would recommend you do is think about the nature of the whole company, and then also your particular role, which is equally important, right? Because again, each company will have variations. But what you want to think about is, okay, I've applied for X job in X company. What do I know about this? And what do I want to know about this? Because when you go into the interview, you want to show that you have done research, that you understand why you are the best fit for the job, why you are a great fit for the company, and of course, why they should hire you. So one thing you can do, of course, is look at the company's website, and really just dig through all of the links. There's almost always an About Us link that you can look into. A lot of times you can look through different links and find out if they are interested in supporting the community, meaning they have a volunteer program. Sometimes you can find out what sort of benefits, on their human resource page. They'll say we have 401k, and we have this, and we have that, tuition reimbursement, and maybe that's something important to you. But you should be looking at their website at the very, very least. See what news they're posting also. If they have something they're very excited to promote, it must mean it's important to the company. So it would make sense that you would want to know that as somebody who wants to work for that company. The other thing you can do is go to sites like Indeed.com and other similar sites and look at the reviews from other employees. Sometimes people say, they post reviews when they're not the happiest, but sometimes you can see a common thread of, wow, out of these 10, reviews, 6 of them say there's no room for advancement. So at least take that into consideration. Are those folks making comments about salary? And if so, is that something that you need to be aware of? So again, just do your research, make sure that you really understand what you're getting into. If you've applied somewhere and then you do some research and you figure out that ooh, this may not be a good fit, then I would recommend either go to the interview and use it as a learning opportunity, because it never can hurt, or 2, then call in advance and respectfully decline the interview. But hopefully you do this research before you even apply, which then narrows how many jobs you apply for. Okay, so again, that was step 1, research the company. Number 2 would be prepare your own content. So in doing your research, you should be coming up with questions. Again, you'll learn things, and every time you learn something new, there should also be maybe a question embedded in that. So for example, maybe you learn, again, that they promote volunteering pretty heavily, and you think, wow, that's really important to me. A good question that could come from that is, why? Where did that come from? Not every organization requires or promotes volunteering. So if I were a candidate and I went into an interview, I might say, gosh, I noticed that you guys do a lot of work with homeless veterans. Are you able to share how that came about? Is that a tie for somebody, or is that, something that the company as a culture just wanted? I'd love to hear more about that. And if I ask that kind of question, it shows that I have done research, that I probably have done more than the next person who didn't do any research. And it maybe also shows that I have something in common, right? I've maybe connected myself, especially if that's a cause that I can show is near and dear to me. So it's something that I would recommend. A question that, when I say prepare questions or prepare your content, what I don't mean is asking questions of the interviewer like, hey, do you like your job? Because there's no really great place to go with that answer. As an interviewer, I've been asked that question a handful of times, and hey, I never really know what the person's really asking, because for me, I typically choose places of employment and positions that I enjoy, and I stay in them for as long as I enjoy them. So my answer is always yes, but I'm always confused as to where the question is coming from, because that person isn't applying for my job. Also, I think most people, when put on the spot, would say yes. Even if I were an employer, a manager who didn't love my job, it would be really weird for me to say, nah, well, I'm just kind of here doing the thing. We'll see what happens. It's just, maybe it doesn't show a lot of thought in terms of the expected outcome that a candidate can get. You're going to have, most employers are probably just going to give you a few minutes to ask questions. So when I say prepare your content, I'm thinking, maybe ask 3. Think of some really great questions that you actually want to know and add some value to you, so that the interview is a 2-way street. The other thing I mean when I say prepare your content is take a copy of your resume or a couple copies of your resume in with you. Part of that is so that in case the employer or the panel doesn't have copies, you can provide them. You've probably worked very hard on your resume to make it a great marketing tool for yourself. And at the very least, during the interview, you want to be able to drive their attention back to that resume. And we'll talk more in another video about things to do during the interview. And one of those is how to use your resume to drive the conversation. But you want to be able to have your resume in front of you, and hopefully you've spent some time when you applied for the job. You have maybe your resume here and the job description next to it, and you say, how do I meet or exceed what it is they're looking for? One thing that I do in terms of preparing my content is I will take the job description, and on my resume, of course, I will have tweaked it before I applied so that it shows how I meet or exceed those qualifications. But then when I have the printed copy in front of me, I underline, star, highlight, whatever those things are that seem to be the most important to the employer, so that they draw my attention. I typically take in a portfolio, which I will show you guys an example of the one that I have here. Sorry, this wasn't planned, but I just always have this. And then I keep it with me in front of me so that I can have my resume out during the interview. And it's helped me quite a bit because as much as I know about my experience when I'm on the spot, it's easy sometimes to forget to go, oh yeah, and I also did this thing. And also here was the result. Okay, so those are the two things I recommend in terms of preparing your content. Again, is great questions, and then also prepare your resume. So the first thing that I told you was do some great research. Secondly was prepare your content. The third thing that I wanted to tell you is to prepare yourself. That probably sounds very easy to understand, very common sense like, right? But what I find is it's not so common. What I recommend is thinking about the environment you're going to go into for the interview and dress or plan your appearance accordingly. In most cases, less is more when it comes to things like jewelry, makeup, and perfume. Less is not more or better when we talk about clothing. So just to be clear, generally speaking, for most jobs, and your particular employer could be different, but your research will have told you, most employers are going to want at least business casual, if not, more formal attire, neutral colors, light on the makeup, definitely light on the perfume. Sorry about that. And light on any, I shouldn't say light on any, but I should say maybe neutral nail colors and length. Again, you'll know if there are exceptions. If you're going to go to work in some, let's say a tattoo place or a brewery, or, those are very different than, let's say, a hospital, right? If you go to work in a hospital, you definitely don't want any false nails on, lots of color. If you're going to go to work in an attorney's office, I actually have had several attorneys. I apologize. I'm not sure. I have cats, and I think their little baby hairs are floating around. I've had more than one attorney say to me, I just can't stand red. I just can't stand a flashy kind of red, especially during an interview. And I don't know, they've never really said if it's because it's a power color or it seems challenging, but generally speaking, you want to go with a neutral color palette. I'm so sorry, but it just can't see. Okay. So that would be clothing choices. Again, thinking about the kind of environment that you're going into is really important. Also, you want to be thinking when you're talking about preparing yourself, make sure things are fitting, make sure they're ironed. I can think of a lot of people who wait till the day of or maybe right before to kind of try on those clothes, and they realize I've either gained or lost weight. Now I can't fit in these pants. Or oops, the skirt's a little too short. And then they're in a pinch, and then they get frustrated because they did not plan these things in advance. And again, if you're somebody who's like, duh, obviously, Carol, we're going to do that, then kudos to you. You can join me next time and teach the second half of the video. I'd love it. But not everybody does think about these things. And so I just want to circle back to that. I am so sorry, guys. I have really just something happening here. And I know I'm going live, so we'll see what happens with that. I apologize. So that was clothing, right? The other thing I've noticed is you want to think about if clothing maybe is a little too tight, you want to practice sitting to make sure that things still sit in their appropriate place. And especially with shoes, if you're not somebody who has walked in heels very much, or men's dress shoes, or whatever type of attire you think you're going to need for that new environment, try it out, work with it a little bit, make sure that you feel good in it, right? It doesn't just need to look good. You need to feel good. It should put you in a position where you feel good during the interview. The last thing I would say in terms of preparing yourself would be also think about where you're going to go, think about how long it's going to take, and then try to plan it so that you're there. I would say within 15 to 20 minutes in advance. I don't recommend going into the interview more than about 5 or maybe 10 minutes in advance. But if you can get yourself into the parking lot 15, 20 minutes in advance, that's probably good timing, because then you can kind of regroup, take another look at your resume, anticipate any questions. You always want to keep in mind too, even just within a 5-mile radius of the company, that you could be driving next to or park next to or walking next to the person who's going to interview you, your boss, certainly a coworker, even within that radius. So definitely kind of have your antenna on. Not that you have to be nervous or watching things, but I would say just get in the mode of, okay, my interview actually kind of starts now. So you don't want to be walking into the building putting on your tie. If you just can't stand to wear a tie, maybe put it on in the car as soon as you get there, and that's probably the best. Or jacket, of course. You know, if you're in Arizona like I am, we don't tend to, love jackets in the summer, so it makes sense that you'd put that on maybe at the last minute. Okay, so just to recap, 3 things that we talked about doing before an interview. Not sure why that's happening. 3 things that we talked about during an interview. 1, again, would be to research. Do some research just to help you feel better, so that 2, you can prepare your content. And after you prepare your content, definitely at least the day before, you want to be able to prepare yourself. Okay, guys, hopefully that was helpful. So sorry for the stuff happening in my eye here. Hopefully I get that fixed pretty soon. If you guys have questions or comments, please feel free to leave them there. I look forward to making more videos for you. Bye and have a great day.